The price of cars in the United States and quite possibly around the world has really gotten out of hand. And I think it has something to do with the financing, as well as obviously the supply chain shortages and the self-inflicted reduction of production to drive up scarcity and ultimately increase the FOMO experience on the dealership lots. I don't remember what I was watching yesterday or the day before, but somebody says, you know that these dealerships have tons of inventory. They choose not to display it on their lots, and they're actually spending money renting real estate, leasing real estate, vacant lots, empty lots, parking garages, storage facilities, to keep their inventory off site, so that when a shopper approaches the dealership and only sees one or two options, it entices them to make the impulse buy, spend more, not negotiate the best price possible. Tricks, strategies, business practices. And now I know that here we actually have a new Porsche dealership being built near Santa Rosa, I believe. And they have an ordinance. It's a city ordinance that restricts them from actually putting vehicles for sale on the road frontage. So they'll only be allowed to keep them inside the showroom or hidden from view, which is ultimately going to be behind the dealership and in multi-level parking garage situations. And while we're on the topic of Porsche building a new dealership, Porsche is also the same manufacturer who stated that they're going to be raising their prices and they're going to be pushing for 20% margin. And it is what it is. But with that being said, the prices continue to go up. The price of the vehicles continue to go up, which means that the price of the payments continue to go up higher and higher, which is actually sparking a new industry, or an old industry, but new demand in an old industry, and that is in the repossession asset collection business for these banks and these lenders. But either way, at the end of the day, people still have to buy cars. They need new cars, new trucks, new vans, new SUVs, new crossovers. I don't even know if cars really exist anymore. Car is an old term. They want new vehicles or additional vehicles. Anything could happen where you have to do that. But at the end of the day, if you look at it, 2023, the price is higher across the board. Now, we are seeing some manufacturers, some dealers, some brands, some models sitting longer and being reduced, but they are the less desirable options out there. But even still, Tesla is a pretty desirable, or was desirable, option, and they've already slashed the price on the Model 3, I think 3 times since the height of the pandemic. The economy, the jobs market, the consumer ability, discretionary income, available income, budgeting is all playing a part in this as we proceed towards this correction, this crash. It's all par for the course. It's part of their plan, basically. The Fed has already announced that. But there's 2 things I want to share with you guys about these cars and these car payments and these car prices, and that's that, maybe 3. The car prices are going to continuously go up, and the banks are going to continuously manipulate the terms to go with the interest rates to make them affordable, but basically pushing it out to now cars may be financed for over 100 months just so people could afford the monthly payment. With that being said, I don't think I would finance a vehicle through a bank. I don't think I would finance it through a dealership. I would finance it through a credit union, because I've always gotten the best rates from credit unions. And with rates being as high as they are and potentially going higher, I want to make sure that I'm paying the least amount possible. But with that being said, I don't really want to buy a car and finance it. So if that were to happen, maybe I might consider paying cash. But then that gets into a whole new can of wax that I don't really want to get into in this video, because I prefer to be in debt on my cars. I just don't like being in a debt in the car that has high interest, if that makes sense. So I would much rather finance any vehicle for any price at an interest rate, let's just say below 3%. And at the very least, I would say that my income would at least break even, if not exceed, that rate of interest that I'm paying on the vehicle at 3% or less. Therefore, I'm using new money, better money, greater income to pay old debts. I don't want to continuously be working to pay old debts with new money that's worth less, because that just means I'm paying more. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm not going too far off on a tangent here. But at the end of the day, these car payments are becoming more and more difficult for people to manage and pay for, which is why it's important to have a budget. The good thing, I would say, about car payments and budget and budgeting, building a budget, zero-sum budget, $0 budget, is that it's a constant, okay? Unlike other expenses that we may incur and have on a monthly basis that fluctuate. Now, some of you may be familiar with the utility companies trying to get you on a fixed rate bill that pretty much sets your bill. They'll take a 12-month average or 12 months total, total cost of your utilities, power, water, lights, heat, whatever utility company it is. And that could fluctuate based on usage, based on seasons. And they'll just take the 12 months, total it up, divide it by 12, and then every month you pay the same. Now, granted, you would be paying more for some months. For instance, let's just say your gas bill. You would actually probably pay more for it in the summer when you're using it less than you would otherwise. But inversely, you'd pay less for it in the winter than you would, because it's just a constant across the board, with the idea, the focus of being surplus, so that at the end of the year or the beginning of the following calendar year, you would actually get a refund or credit that would then offset, so you'll never owe more. Kind of like how your taxes work. Anybody working a 9-to-5, a regular job, W-2, they set up your tax rate, but ultimately you normally receive a tax refund because you've overpaid. And this is somewhat by design, because most people don't have the funding, the capital, the resources, the savings available to pay a tax bill. So you overpay. The IRS gets their money for sure, no doubt, and then you may get something back in return. And when we look at a car payment, car payments are now getting up to, now this could be for a Ford, it could be for Chevy, Cadillac, Nissan, BMW, Mercedes, Tesla, Toyota, Porsche. It doesn't matter. The car payments now are getting upwards of, I think, $700 or more. And odds are, if you are buying a new car today, trading in a vehicle, and the new car is, let's just say like a Suburban or a Tahoe or an Escalade, or maybe even an F-150 or an F-250, or a new Ram 2500 or something like that, or any EV really. So like the Teslas are kind of expensive, like a Model S or a Model X, they're still expensive. Rivian's expensive, Taycan's expensive, Lucid is expensive. So then you could be getting into $1,200, $1,500, $2,000 a month range. So regardless, whatever vehicle, whatever car you choose to buy and finance, the beauty of it is that when building the budget, you know that your car payment is not going to change. It's not going to fluctuate. It is what it is. The only variation there would be through the amortization schedule, which as you pay your first payments, you're paying mostly interest. And then as you pay your payments towards the end of paying off the vehicle, you're paying mostly principal. And that's just how they've calculated it. And granted, if you were to make payments towards principal, extra payments towards principal early, then your payment would never change. So it would help you pay off the car sooner. But if you had a $700 a month car payment and you had 3 years left to pay on it, 36 months, but you know, you made let's just say you made a lump sum payment towards principal for, I guess I could have chose a far easier math, but let's just say $8,400. $8,400. Check my math. Make sure that's right. So 700 times 12, that'd be 12 months payments of $700. So $8,400. If you were to make that payment towards principal, the only thing that would change is you would no longer need 3 years to pay off the vehicle. You'd need 2 years to pay off the vehicle, roughly, because you've chipped away at that principal balance of the 3 years you had left to pay. But the payment still stays the same. But within 24 months, you'll be paid off. And then every month after that, you won't have to pay unless you decided to trade it in or buy another car or whatever. So that's kind of how that works. But the beauty of the car payment is that it's a constant, and it allows you to set up and structure a budget much better than having so many variables. Because today it's pretty normal to see monthly expenses fluctuate and tend to trend higher, be more costly, more expensive. So if we can fix or have more fixed costs, that only makes things easier for us to budget, easier for us to save, easier for us to get out of debt, and easier for us to figure out how much more money we need to make to get ahead. Now, the getting ahead part, the making more money part, the building passive income, side hustle income, additional income streams, that's where we really need to be focusing on and working towards, so that we can get rid of these fixed costs. Because the fixed costs typically have a finite lifespan. They have a set term, whether it's a car payment, whether it's a lease payment, whether it's a mortgage payment. A rent payment's a little different. But a lot of these costs can be totaled up, determine and calculate, you know, what's remaining on them, and then start eliminating them. And I think that's going to be very, very important moving forward because of how many changes are happening in the economy. Consequently, I received a notification, a message on Twitter that I think it's Senate Majority Leader Schumer says that debt ceiling budget negotiations are underway. And this is good because in just a few days, we could potentially see a default and the government unable to pay their bills, which would be a terrible situation to be in. But at the same time, the tweet went on to say that now they're taking a recess and they'll come back to this later. So obviously this is not a huge concern and top priority for these government officials, as much as it is for everyone else who would be affected by it if the government were to run out of money, which their bank account took a drastic drop by like $20 billion in just 5 days. And it almost seems like there were very few days left if that trend continued on without a new budget, without replenishment. But even the government says that they don't know how much money they owe. Believe it or not, it's kind of strange that they would say that, because they don't have fixed costs. They have so many variables out there that it's hard to really set a budget when you don't really know how much things are going to cost, because they keep changing. Granted, there can be some miscalculations and errors in accounting, which that actually happened, because they said that there was an error in accounting and roughly $3 billion was just missing. And they found it, which meant that they could then spend or send another $3 billion to Ukraine for aid, weapons, artillery, more ways of facilitating and enabling this ongoing, albeit expensive, conflict. But I digress. It's 2023. Cars are expensive. Car payments are high. Interest rates are going up. We're fighting tooth and nail between the manufacturers and the dealers. The people are stuck in the middle, in the balance, trying to figure out how they're going to afford it all. And this is all based on a depreciating asset that's going to be worth far less than you paid for it the moment you drive it off the lot. Honestly, it's not even the moment you drive it off the lot, because you could buy a vehicle or finance a vehicle, and as soon as you sign for it, as soon as you sign your name on the dotted line, you personally guarantee you're going to pay the debt, and the vehicle is now then being processed and titled. It's worth less. It's worth less. It just is. It's no longer a new vehicle. It's now a pre-owned vehicle. It's now considered and categorized as a used vehicle. And this is just how it works. Now, granted, there are some instances where this can work out to your advantage. Highly desirable vehicles, certain Corvettes, certain C8s, like a Z06, C8 Z06, or the new C8 E-Ray. I think they call it E-Ray. It's the electric hybrid C8 Corvette. Or quite possibly the Envision 74, I believe, is what Hyundai's coming out with. Or there's a few vehicle choices out there that could potentially be appreciating assets, but really and truly the dealers have kind of cornered the market on those. And basically what they do is they charge you market adjustments, additional dealer markups, allocation fees, all sorts of added costs that they ultimately charge you up front for any potential profit that could be gained on having access to this vehicle and purchasing it new, and then selling it on the secondhand market for more for those who couldn't get it brand new as soon as it came out. We've actually seen this happen before the pandemic. This was happening years ago, and I think Range Rover was one of them. Ford actually got involved with it too, but Range Rover literally blacklisted customers who would buy certain Range Rover models and then export them and mark it up. It destroys the brand. It gives the brand a bad look, bad reputation. And then you also have the Ford GT, whereas the first Ford GT, I think, kind of got abused on the secondhand market. So what Ford did was, when the new GT came out, it was invite only. So you couldn't just have the money to buy this somewhat exotic car from Ford, which is kind of strange to say, exotic Ford, but there's such a thing. If you've ever seen the new Ford GT, you know what I'm talking about. Watch Shmee 150, watch Top Gear, watch Jeremy Clarkson, watch the Grand Tour, watch Throttle House, watch. I don't know if Straight Pipes ever got a chance to get a Ford GT, but what they did was on the second go round with the Ford GT, they said it's invite only. I believe that, man, I think it was Ed Bolian with Ben Wiki. He might have even got an opportunity, or he tried to get an opportunity, but at the end of the day, there was a strict, or maybe it was Doug DeMuro, but it was another YouTube automotive personality, and it was a strict requirement and legal obligation that if you were to be invited and purchase the Ford GT, that you were not allowed to sell it for a certain period of time. I think it was about 2 years, so that you wouldn't just buy it and then immediately list it for sale on Cars and Bids and double the price and just ruin the market and upset so many people. Now, granted, people are going to be upset because we're now moving towards an age of limited production and vehicles that are literally like numbered, that will be debuted, publicized, but the general public will never have the ability to ever really buy one. And their only option is going to be to admire it from afar, or potentially have the ability to try to purchase one through an auction, for which the price is going to be considerably more than it ever was new, and quite possibly more than it's actually really worth. But much like anything else out there, the market dictates the price, and things are only worth what people are willing to pay for them. So there's that. But if you guys want to know more about creating a budget, I'm going to link a video at the end of this where I go over a $0 budget, super simple and easy way to do it, how I do mine. If you got any questions, feel free, reach out, hit me up. Hope you guys are doing well, having an amazing day. You guys take care, be safe. I'll see you real soon. Bye.